Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. The story of human civilization is, in many ways, a story written in water and mud. The first great societies in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China all grew from the fertile embrace of river valleys. These rivers offered the basics for settled life: water, food, and highways for trade. But they were not gentle landlords. They were dynamic, powerful, and often destructive forces that demanded ingenuity and resilience. This profound relationship between ancient people and their rivers is the focus of geoarchaeology, a field that blends geology and archaeology to reconstruct ancient landscapes. By studying the very earth in which civilizations took root, we can unearth the epic tale of how river systems served as the cradles, and sometimes the coffins, of civilization. Let's dig in. The transition from scattered settlements to bustling cities was only possible because of the agricultural power unlocked by rivers. At the heart of this was the annual flood. In Egypt, the Nile's predictable inundation was so central that the historian Herodotus called Egypt the gift of the Nile. When the floodwaters receded, they left behind a thick blanket of black, nutrient-rich silt, creating a ribbon of incredibly fertile land called Kemet through the arid desert. In Mesopotamia, the Tigris and Euphrates also deposited fertile soil, but their floods were violent and unpredictable, a fact that would deeply shape their culture. The same was true for China's Yellow River, so named for the yellowish silt or loess it carries. This soil was exceptionally rich, but it came at a terrible price. Of course, a constant water source also meant ancient farmers could practice irrigation, freeing agriculture from the whims of rainfall. The need to manage these massive water projects is what many historians believe led to centralized governments and social hierarchies, creating what are sometimes called hydraulic empires, where power belonged to those who controlled the water. The Mesopotamians, living in a hot, dry climate, became master hydraulic engineers. They built complex networks of canals, levees, and embankments. To lift water to their fields, they used the shaduf, a simple crane-like device you can still see in some parts of the world today. But this intensive irrigation had a hidden cost: salinization. Over centuries, evaporating water left behind salt, slowly poisoning the soil. The Egyptians developed a more sustainable system called basin irrigation. They built earthen walls to trap the Nile's floodwaters, allowing the water and its rich silt to saturate the soil for over a month before draining. This system was so effective it sustained Egypt for millennia without the salt problems that plagued Mesopotamia. The cities of the Indus Valley, like Mohenjo-Daro and Dholavira, show a startlingly advanced understanding of water. Dholavira had a series of 16 massive, stone-cut reservoirs to capture monsoon rains. Even more impressively, these cities had the world's first known urban sanitation systems, with covered drains and even private toilets. In China, taming the Yellow River, often called the River of Sorrow, was a constant struggle. Legends say the Xia dynasty was founded by the hero Yu the Great, who organized massive efforts to control the river's deadly floods, a struggle that would define Chinese civilization for thousands of years. Beyond farming, rivers were the first great highways. In a world without roads, they were essential for transporting grain, timber, and massive stone blocks for building pyramids and temples. They connected city-states and facilitated trade between entire civilizations, like the Harappans of the Indus Valley and the cities of Mesopotamia. Even the invention of writing is tied to rivers. Cuneiform in Mesopotamia and hieroglyphics in Egypt emerged to manage agricultural surplus and trade. But for all their gifts, these rivers were a double-edged sword. The very force that created fertile land could also wipe out cities and destroy harvests. The contrast is clearest between Egypt and Mesopotamia. The Nile's flood was so regular, the Egyptians based their entire calendar on it: Akhet, the inundation; Peret, the growing season; and Shamu, the harvest. It fostered a sense of stability and cosmic order. In Mesopotamia, the floods of the Tigris and Euphrates were catastrophic and erratic. This constant threat is believed to have created a more pessimistic worldview. This fear is immortalized in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which tells of a great flood sent by the gods to destroy humanity. And here, geoarchaeology provides a fascinating link between myth and mud. Excavations at ancient Mesopotamian cities have revealed thick layers of sterile river sediment separating layers of human occupation. While these don't point to a single global flood, they are clear evidence of devastating local floods that would have seemed like the end of the world. No river, however, was more destructive than the Yellow River, China's sorrow. The river carries so much silt that it gradually raises its own riverbed. To contain it, ancient societies built massive levees. This created a dangerous feedback loop. As the riverbed rose, the levees had to be built higher, until the river was flowing high above the surrounding plain, a suspended river. When a breach inevitably occurred, the result was a cataclysm that could kill millions and topple dynasties. Beyond floods, a slower, unseen threat was accumulating in the soils of Mesopotamia: salt. Cuneiform texts and plant remains show that as salt levels rose, farmers were forced to abandon wheat and switch to more salt-tolerant barley. Eventually, even barley yields declined, contributing to economic instability. This highlights a timeless lesson. The innovations that allow a civilization to prosper can sometimes sow the seeds of its own decline. So how do we know all of this? This is where the amazing toolkit of geoarchaeology comes in. Much of this history is buried under meters of sediment. To see it, researchers use remote sensing. High-resolution satellite imagery, including declassified Corona Spy satellite photos from the 60s, can reveal the faint outlines of ancient river channels and canals by detecting subtle differences in soil moisture and vegetation growth. On the ground, tools like ground-penetrating radar can map what's underground without ever digging. To understand how the landscape changed over time, geoarchaeologists drill long sediment cores. Each layer in a core is a page in the region's environmental history. A layer of sand might indicate a major flood, while a dark, organic layer could signal a marsh. By analyzing these layers, scientists can reconstruct past river behavior. For example, sediment cores from the Karnak temple complex in Egypt revealed that the site was uninhabitable before 2500 BCE due to frequent flooding. Only after the Nile's channels shifted did a stable island form, providing the foundation for the temple. The soil itself contains a chemical archive. Elevated levels of phosphates can pinpoint where ancient people lived, kept animals, or dumped their trash. Microscopic plant remains, like phytoliths, can tell us exactly what crops were grown. And all of this is put into a timeline, using dating techniques like radiocarbon and optically stimulated luminescence, which can tell us the last time a grain of sand was exposed to sunlight. The river didn't just shape the physical world, it shaped society and culture. The need to manage large-scale irrigation and flood control required unprecedented social organization, likely driving the rise of social hierarchies and elite classes who controlled the water and food surplus. This is reflected in their religious beliefs. In Egypt, the predictable Nile shaped a worldview centered on order, known as Ma'at. The river god Hapi was a symbol of abundance. Their optimistic outlook is seen in their concept of an afterlife, an idealized version of their life along the Nile. In contrast, the violent floods of Mesopotamia fostered an anxious cosmology with powerful, capricious gods who had to be constantly appeased. Their flood myths show a deep anxiety about their precarious existence. In China, the ability to control the Yellow River became a test of political legitimacy. A ruler who could protect the people from floods was seen to have the mandate of heaven. A catastrophic flood was a sign they had lost it. The story of these ancient river civilizations is a timeless epic of human resilience, adaptation, and our profound link to the environment. Geoarchaeology allows us to see them not as static ruins, but as dynamic societies in constant dialogue with the natural world. As we face our own modern challenges of climate change and water scarcity, the lessons learned from the mud and silt of these ancient rivers are more relevant than ever. They teach us that understanding and respecting the power of our environment is not just a matter of prosperity, but of survival. The echoes from these ancient riverbanks are a powerful reminder that we, too, are a river valley civilization, living on the floodplain of history. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.